Hiya, Kevin.
Hello, Shad. How's it going?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
I'm very excited to talk about this week's episode. The Last Laugh is the fourth episode of Batman the Animated Series. It is another Joker episode. I had a lot of brain blasts throughout this episode. I'm not going to hold off any longer. I have nothing more to talk about. I read some Superman. I read some White Knight on my time off. But I'm just going to hop right on to it. Again, this episode's called The Last Laugh. The title card is kind of spooky. The clown. And I was like, oh, I think this is going to be a spookier episode. Or at least a little more intense. Because the last Joker episode we were given the title card while eerie was still kind of playful.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was kind of Pennywise-ish spooky clown. No, so the music, I have it in my head. The da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum,
It went like rock music, and I was kind of okay. It gave me the Batman Beyond kind of music vibes, how it just goes crazy at times.
I also really liked there were certain flourishes throughout it. It wasn't a kazoo, but there were carnival-like themes whenever the Joker showed up, and I'm like, this is really cool. I was like, this is composed very well.
Mm-hmm.
But the episode starts with a mailman dropping off the daily newspaper at a newsstand, and it reveals that today is April Fool's Day, which should not exist in Gotham. That's, I don't know. Whoever's running Gotham, they shouldn't have April Fools. You have a Joker, you shouldn't have April Fool's Day. But there's a freight ship of garbage being piloted by what seems to be a clown. We will later figure out it is a robo-clown, Clownbot, which I will dub
Captain Clown.
Captain Clown the Clownbot. And there are fumes seeping into parts of the city from the top of the garbage freight as it passes by through the river. I wrote down I really enjoy the music. Drum set, low strings, mostly brass, impeccable. The boat drives under a bridge, and a driver gets a whiff of it and then begins to laugh uncontrollably. And then he starts driving like a maniac through the town, and we see other civilians. There are these workers painting a pole, and they react to the reckless driving, and they shift very quickly from anger to uncontrollable laughter. And I'm like, oh, another gas episode. The driver approaches a drawbridge, and then he jumps out the car as the car drives straight into the water. And the water's brown, and I'm like, makes sense for Gotham. Couldn't have blue, clean water. It's, But we transition to a wide shot of Wayne Manor. If you go back and watch it, the bat portion of the building, it kind of looks like bat ears.
Yes,
and,
yes. It has the little wingtip, whatever you want to call them, yeah.
I was like, all right.
Yes, I saw that and let out a nice little chuckle. I went, Batman's house has Batman ears.
We go inside of Wayne Manor, and Bruce is shaving, and he nicks himself. I'm like, wow. He wears a lot of yellow in this show. His towels are yellow. His Bruce Wayne attire is just an overcoat and a yellow shirt underneath. And he has yellow towels. I was like, okay, interesting. A lot of yellow. But he nicks himself, and Alfred enters the bathroom and questions if he had a rough night crime fighting. And Bruce replies, very. I wonder if the correlation to him nicking himself had to do with how rough last night was. Because Batman is usually very clean-shaven, and I assume he doesn't have these problems all the time.
You would guess, and it could just be Alfred also being like, you're Batman, you do all this, and you cut yourself shaving. Come on, dude, do better, haha.
Shake my head. It's April Fool's Day. But like the best man that Alfred is, Alfred tells him that he's drawn a bath, and Bruce heads towards the bath, and then he sees it empty, only for Alfred to hold up a picture of a bath. He's like, I drew you a bath, sir. And then he says April Fools, and I was like, yes, this is great.
What I noticed too is whenever he's with Alfred and no one else, no matter if he's in costume or not, he's using his Batman voice. I'm like, oh, so that's how he just talks normally. I'm like, okay.
Bruce is the mask.
Yep.
But after the April Fool's joke, Bruce heads to the shower and tells Alfred to turn on the radio, and Alfred muses that Bruce doesn't have a funny bone in his body. He begins to take the shower, and the radio informs Bruce that the GCPD is investigating a series of near-fatal accidents along the riverfront, along with hundreds of Gothamites having erupted into quote-unquote laughing fools. While Alfred thinks it's an April Fool prank, Bruce believes it's the Joker, and I'm like, it's the time of year.
Yeah.
Again, shouldn't have this holiday in Gotham. Shouldn't have April Fool's Day. You shouldn't have Halloween in Gotham.
At that point, you shouldn't have any holiday because Calendar Man's just going to use all of them.
No more holidays for Gotham. That's one step to a safer day. Then you're going to go down the ladder of, so I can have a birthday? And then someone shows up to a birthday and harasses somebody. We transition back to the garbage ship. It is stopped underneath the drawbridge, and beneath the surface, there's a smiling submarine attached to the boat. At first, I thought it was just a submarine underneath the garbage ship, but it's all one object.
Yeah, I remember this one as soon as it started. I, turned it on. Title card didn't get me, but once I saw that boat, I went, oh, it's this one. I remember this one. This is the one that stuck out to me as a kid, and here we are now. I was like, I know what's going to happen.
Two goons exit the submarine and they head towards a sunken car. They open it and they reveal gold and they steal it all. The two goons pry it open with crowbars and I'm like, that's underwater, bud. You're not getting those doors open. But cartoon, it's okay. Also, crowbars, not the first time we're going to see it in this episode. I bring that up.
Ruh-roh.
Ruh-roh indeed. The man on the radio continues to illuminate the state of Gotham as the Joker is getting ready. Everyone has turned into raving lunatics and the gas is traveling towards the financial district, only for the reporter to devolve into laughter as the Joker announces that that's his cue. It's really cool foreshadowing. I didn't know. Whenever the car drove off the drawbridge into the water, I'm like, what are they stealing from it? Money. And then the gas is seeping towards the financial district. What is Joker about to go and do? He's about to go steal more money and things. And so I feel like it's really cool that it's brought up outside of... We're not told Joker's plan is to go steal money. We're told from the chaos that is happening that this gas has entered the city and is creeping towards the financial district, only for Joker to say, oh, that's my cue, as he goes towards the financial district. But it cuts to the financial district where a building says the stocks are down 20%, only for the camera to turn towards the harbor, showing the garbage ship continuing along the river. So I looked up the submarines. They have the freaking thing you can look out of. And I was like, I don't know what that's called. So I had to Google it. It's called a periscope. I learned that today. I had to look up the word, an optical instrument used for submarine navigation, the periscope.
Yes.
Who says comics don't teach you anything? But the Joker finds a dock to park at, and he and the cronies exit. The goons are in clown masks, and the Joker is wearing what looks like a bubble on his head, but it's something to protect him from the gas. And he says, when the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. Throughout this episode, there are a lot of really bad one-liners that I wouldn't accept if it weren't delivered by Kevin Conroy or Mark Hamill. Because the lines suck. But again, later on, there's a line that he says, and I was like, I don't know why, but that rubbed me the wrong way, and I was like, not in a bad way, but in a creepy kind of, oh, he's a really good Joker actor.
Yeah, I feel like with Mark Hamill, this is I feel like it's still pretty early on in him finding his Joker, and he did a really good job in the Christmas one, but he's very much still finding his stride. And there are parts in this that I was like, that's a really good line, and the way he gave that, I was like, huh. But there are a couple that I'll point out later, but I feel like this is right when he's kind of starting to find his stride, you know?
Every time he says the Batman, I didn't realize it the last time I watched it, but when I watched it before doing this, he says the Batman a different way every time he says Batman, and Batman says Joker the exact same way every time he says Joker, which doesn't have anything to do with anything, but I think it's really cool to see all the different ways he says Batman or talks to Batman. So we're shown a continuous shot of the Gothamites being slowly enveloped and affected by the gas, devolving into uncontrollable laughter. There's this lady pushing a stroller. Her hair is blonde but built like Marge Simpson, and I was like, but the uncomfortable part about it was she kind of had bangs going on, but it was just a smooth tower type thing. Didn't like it at all. But she was crossing the street, and as she starts to laugh, she shoves the stroller away. It's back in the next scene, but I watched her just yeet the baby. Crazy stuff's happening. And there's an officer nearby, and she's at a parking meter, and she begins to laugh uncontrollably, and everybody else in the scene, etc. There's a shot of the gas pouring down the street, and it fills the screen. I really like that shot. It gives a sense of motion, I guess, because the boat is the source of it, and we see the boat continuously moving in a direction, and now that it's parked, it is enveloping a single area, and I was like, wow, kind of spooky, kind of eerie. As everyone is out of their wits, Joker and the goons approach the streets, and they approach a Jules R Us, and he throws a brick through the window. Also, a really good music cue. I don't remember how it went, but you could tell that the music was leading somewhere, and the climax of it was him throwing the brick through the window. That's really cool. And then he says, who says crime doesn't pay? And the goons begin robbing people on the street. One of them just like grabs a guy and flips him upside down, just starts like just middle schooling him.
They just violate random citizens. They just walk around dum-da-dum-da-dum. I was like, wow, they're doing that so nonchalantly.
Violate is the correct word. It cuts to outside Wayne Manor as there's a weather balloon-like device floating towards the gas, and inside, the Bat computer is analyzing the airborne pathogen, concluding that lengthy exposure to the gas will lead to permanent insanity. And Batman's working on something and calls for Alfred to bring him a tool, only for Alfred to tell him to fetch it himself, and then blows a raspberry at him. I've seen the term blows raspberries before, and since I have no better reason to look it up than I did right then, and I was like, what does that mean? And I looked it up. It derives from a Cockney rhyming slang for raspberry tart and or fart, and
okay.
I was like, oh, stupid British people, and that's why we have blowing raspberries.
Interesting.
Batman tells him that this is no time for messing around, only to be met with the sounds of things being smashed upstairs, and Alfred begins to laugh. Batman rushes upstairs only to witness Alfred destroying everything, as well as the open window letting the gas in, as Alfred, he's saying that he's just spring cleaning. I was like, dang, because he was just cleaning up, so he opened the window and the gas came in.
Yep. I don't know if you noticed, but one of the things he smashes too is the clock.
He does smash the clock.
Which I don't think it explicitly says that that's where Bruce came from and, like, found him, but, you know, that's where the Batcave entrance is, the clock. Or at least it's tied to the clock. I don't know if in this one you have to set the clock and it opens a different door, or the clock is the door, but either way, the clock gets smashed. I was like, oh, Bruce can't be too thrilled about that one.
Isn't the time supposed to be set to when his parents died?
Yes, 10:48.
Yeah, and that's how they get in and out.
You know, that's a healthy way to process trauma. Relive it every time you want to enter X room.
Batman rushes upstairs to witness Alfred destroying everything, as well as the open window letting the gas in, as Alfred is just quote-unquote spring cleaning. Batman equips himself with a gas mask as Alfred collapses after declaring that he's contracted a case of the giggles. And I was like, oh, Alfred. And with that, Batman gets to work. Immediately, the next scene we see rushing across the water is the Batboat for the first time, and I was like, that looks awesome. And he speeds towards the origin of the gas. We return to the madness that is Gotham. We're shown wrecked cars, destroyed buildings, smoke pouring out of windows, broken telephone poles, people climbing the broken telephone poles, people everywhere just laughing. And then we return to the financial district with Summer Gleason, the reporter. Continuity. She is trying to get this done as quickly as possible in a gas mask. She declares that this place gives her the creeps, and she's just trying to make the report and get out of there. Reporting on the chaos of the city, you see a man chasing a lady with a bat. People are throwing paper out the windows. I liked this. There is a billboard of stocks, like a digital billboard, and it has nonsense on it. It has like some numbers, some words, but then it just evolves into ha 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 ha.
I don't know if I caught that. I can't remember, but interesting.
It was the same board that earlier said like the stocks were 20% down. Summer asks if April Fool's Day will mark the end of Gotham as we know it. And then we see that Joker is watching the news and declares that the only things gaining now are laughingstocks. And as I said earlier, this episode is just chock full of one-liners because there aren't many conversations happening. The only real conversations that happen throughout this episode are between Batman and Joker, and then like the brief interaction with Batman and Alfred. And again, I'll stand behind it. Bad lines, read incredibly. Batman arrives, grappling their boat with his boat, and he sets the Batboat to autopilot to tow the garbage ship away from the city, and Joker peers through the periscope to figure out what's going on. He sweeps from left to right, and he sees Batman, and then he turns back, and then Batman just, like, open palms the top of the periscope, and it, like, whips him off of it. I thought it was funny. Joker and his goons exit, and Joker's like, look who's come to trash the place. Batman, a fitting place for you, Joker. And Joker's like, ooh, I love to get down and dirty. And I'm like, such bad lines.
It's so bad, but it's so perfect too.
It doesn't get in the way of what we're really here for. So the goons get to work and are quickly dealt with, like very quickly dealt with. One of them dives towards Batman. He just steps out of the way. They crash to the periscope, and the other one is wielding a crowbar, which for Batman fans is always poor taste in weapon involving anything Batman and the Joker. But he deals with him, he disarms him, and then yeets him onto the other guy. And then there's a third clown that tears the tether of the Batboat and causes the boat to drive off. And I was like, oh, because at first he already seemed kind of weird, but then he did that, and I was like, oh no.
What's going on here?
The clown is ordered by Joker to get Batman, and Batman punches him in the stomach, and this is like, I was like, oh, and you see his eyes go from angular to kind of like concerned. Batman recoils holding his fist, and then the clown picks him up, and then spins him super fast. Joker calls him Captain Clown. I'm just calling him Clownbot. but he rotates from his upper body, and he just like rotates super duper quickly. And once he stops, you see Batman's panting, and I feel like if he just kept spinning Batman, he probably would have just passed out. But they stop, and then Joker opens a can that he was sitting on. They like viciously just like wham, dump him into the can, and then Joker seals the container. The Joker stabs holes in the container so that his little bat friend doesn't suffocate the air holes. And then Clownbot chucks him overboard. And then Joker just sails back into Gotham. He was like, oh no, I didn't realize there were going to be water holes too. And I was like, oh god.
Such a dumb line. I will say too, whenever Batman first starts fighting Captain Clown, this is the first time he's like fighting a character. He like looks like, oh no, I don't know if I can do this right now. Like we've seen Batman scared, like whenever Kirk Langstrom starts transforming into Man-Bat, that freaks him out a bit. And obviously with Scarecrow and Fear Gas. But this was the first time he like gets up and is like, oh boy. He's like, I have my work cut out for me here.
As Batman is sinking and taking on water within the container, he holds his breath and contacts the Batboat. It becomes a submarine, all caps, incredible. He has a transformer for a vehicle, and Batman waits for it to arrive. So, sometimes, when I was a kid at least, whenever there was some sort of scene when some character was forced to hold their breath for extended periods of time, I'd be like, I wonder if I could hold my breath. Yes! And so, I held my breath for as long as he was doing it. He contacts the Batboat, it turns to a submarine, and then it descends into the water. Batman is able to activate lasers from the Batboat from his belt, and it like slices the container, and he's able to escape. And then he takes off his gas mask and swims towards the surface, and then he pants heavily. That entire sequence, I was holding my breath, and I was like, oh no. And whenever he was swimming up, I was like, well, I guess I should like, he's not sitting still anymore, so I was just flailing. And then he made it to the surface, and I was like, yeah, no, I would have died, and I would have died quickly. My body would have floated to the surface, but as he reaches the surface, he growls and says, you want to play dirty, Joker? And again, cheesy, but it was so cool when he said it. Yeah, he was like, you want to play dirty, Joker? And I was like, ah. It cuts to the Ace waste disposal plant. Joker has parked the garbage boat by the shore. Joker has hooked up hoses to a tank of liquid to cover the garbage with. And we're given the line, this will give those April Fool's smiles per gallon. Again, I think that one is a little better than some of the other lines, because the smiles per gallon, I was like, har har. The goons are preparing to douse the trash with the liquid, but then we see a sharpened batarang, and it's thrown and it severs the hoses, and it sprays both the goons with whatever this liquid is, and Batman returns, looking awesome. Like, he's standing there, and then his cape, like, blows in the wind, and he has his mask back on, and I was like, nice. Batman removes the mask from both of the goons, causing them to devolve into laughter, and Batman arms himself with a metal rod to face the Clownbot. So this whole scene kind of stressed me out because I knew Batman was going to come out on top. But the steadfastness of this robot started to stress me out. I assume every punch that Batman throws is close to 130%, which is why whenever he punched him initially, and then he was like, oh no, I was like, oh no. So he picked up the rod and he started whacking the Clownbot, and he doesn't just hit him in the stomach. I saw some video of someone talking about Avengers Age of Ultron, and the guy was complaining that every time Captain America gets into some sort of bind, he puts them in a stranglehold, and he puts Ultron into a chokehold, and they're like, he's a robot!
Yep.
So usually, even when there are robots, a lot of the superheroes still do the traditional hit him in the tummy, hit him in the face, but
just hit them harder.
Just hit them harder. Batman just starts to like strike him in the head, and then he's able to like knock him over, and then he makes the beeline for the trash compactor. The Clownbot grabs his cape, and as Edna and Mode said, no capes. Batman delivers some powerful blows to his head. He continues to bash into him, and this forces Batman to ditch the cape. He still looks so cool without the cape, and I was like, oh.
I had an action figure from this one that did not have the cape, and I was like, yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, one day I need to figure out in my own brain how little does Batman need for me to still think he's cool, because I was like, oh, it's the cape. Removes the cape. Nah, he still looks cool. And it's just like, what more do you have to take from him before I'm like, okay, he kind of looks silly.
Yeah.
Because you can take the bat suit away from him and leave him with the cowl, but he can still look really cool, just a cowl in clothes. So, I don't know. He's just awesome. Batman continues to strike at Clownbot's head, breaking the clown facade, only to reveal the metallic interior. I really liked the close-up shot. It's a really cool design, how the robot is, but at the same time, if I was in that situation, and it went from clown to that, I wouldn't feel any safer.
Yeah, that was the part that always freaked me out as a kid. Like, first off, with the metal pole just absolutely beating his head. You watch the hair swish back and forth as the clown just gets his face beaten in and not react. I'm like, that's terrifying. And then the face gets ripped off, and you're like, that's somehow even scarier.
But Batman is able to push it into the compactor, and he activates it, crushing it into a cube. And you watch Batman have a sigh of relief, which shows that this was not an easy task for him. This really reminded me, very recently, I've watched all 4 of the old Superman movies. And in the third one, Superman interacts with a corrupted piece of kryptonite, and it affects him and makes him kind of evil. And then later on in the movie, he fights an imaginary version of himself, just like a mental projection practically, and it's in a trash yard. And the evil Superman throws Clark Kent into the garbage compactor, and then it like crushes him. And I was like, oh my gosh. And all throughout those movies, there are a lot of scenes that were very like claustrophobic scenes. Like in the first movie, Lois Lane is in her car and there's an earthquake. The ground opens up, her car falls in, and then it like crushes her and she's buried alive. And she dies. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then Superman has to like go around the earth to like rewind time.
Yeah.
But there are just like a number of scenes where I'm like, that's very intense for a 70s movie.
Yeah.
But it gave me those vibes whenever Clownbot was crushed into a little Wall-E cube. This infuriates the Joker as he activates an excavator, the construction claw machine. Had to Google this as well. He delivers the same line twice.
Yes, you killed Captain Clown. That line, that to me is the first great Mark Hamill like Joker delivery we've gotten. He's been good up to that point, but that point with that force with it, I was like, oh, this is like Joker's Joker. This is Joker no longer just screwing around. This is Joker being Joker now. And I was like, this is the evil Joker we know, not the one who's just da-da-da-da-da. I'm gonna mess with you, Batman.
Joker drops a claw full of garbage on top of Batman, and as soon as I watch it, I can see that there are metal objects in there as well. Those things can hold a lot of things, so I was like, that had to hurt. But for me, I think the very next line was my first, wow, that was Joker. It was, hey Batman, you stink so bad, I can smell you from here. But the inflection he uses on it, I was like, oh my gosh. The way that Joker says this line is incredible, and it almost sounds kind of like Carnival Barker-like in the middle. I don't know. Most of the lines in this episode would be lame if anyone but Kevin Conroy and Luke Skywalker were reading them. But Joker rides on top of the Clownbot cube on a roller track, entering the Ace waste disposal plant, and Batman recovers and pursues him. The way Batman slowly walks into the passage, because at first he starts walking and then he breaks into a sprint. Incredible. And this is just my favorite scene in this episode, where Batman enters and it gets dark, and then he walks and then he runs towards the Joker, and then Joker sitting crisscrossed on the Clownbot cube. He's in the dark, but he's smiling. You see some sort of blinds or curtains. It casts a shadow onto him, and you just see like him illuminate bit by bit, and it casts him back into darkness, and I was like, that's also really creepy. But as Joker reaches the end of this little ride, he grabs a rope swinging out of the way, and Batman almost falls into some sort of molten liquid. And he leaves for safety as an obstacle course is made out of the hanging machinery of gears and cogs. And as Batman closes in on the Joker, Joker starts to bolt towards a hole in the ground, and he swan dives into it, and Batman follows. And Joker's sliding down face first. He's kind of like propped up on both of his elbows, kind of like a schoolgirl type, and he's grinning the whole way down. And at the mouth of the tunnel, Joker grabs another rope and swings across the pit, and Batman has to stop himself. Also, horrific. I don't know what his gloves and boots are made out of, but he had to stop himself so he didn't fall.
Oh yeah, couldn't feel good.
I know it didn't feel good. Then the Joker activates the trash chute, pushing Batman off the edge towards the incinerator. He said, justice will be served hot. And I was like, oh, that's what this hole is. Batman uses his grappling hook and grapples up towards the platform with the Joker, growling, justice will be served, Joker. And I was like, oh, yes. And Joker counters, again, with service with a smile as he drops a Joker card from his sleeve and throws it at Batman, who dodges it, but the card, like, slices into the wall. And as Batman is cornering the Joker, Batman says, clean up your act, Joker. And Joker starts to laugh. He's like, that's a joke. Batman finally told a joke. And as Joker's cackling, he drops another card from his sleeve, whipping it at Batman. And then Batman just catches it out of the air. And I was like, yeah. I was like, that's my Batman. This spooks the Joker, and as he flees, he gets tangled in a cord on the ground, and then he ends up dangling from the platform they're on. I rewinded it a few times. It really just looked like Joker threw himself over the guardrail because he got tangled in the thing, but there is a guardrail. And I was like, you should have just like slipped into the guardrail or slipped through and below it, but he went like a couple feet over the guardrail. And I was like, okay. And this is where I wanted to bring up. Whenever we reach this area with the Ace chemicals, not Ace chemicals, the Ace trash disposal.
Same thing.
Yeah. I thought, and I Googled it to double check myself because I didn't want to sound stupid, but Joker became Joker at Ace Chemicals. And then I was like, this is the second time we've been in a factory setting and Joker has like been dangling off of something over some sort of liquid and Batman had to pull him up. And it just feels like, without actually giving us the origin story, because I think we do get an origin story for Joker later.
I think so.
But without actually giving us the origin story, once we get to that, it's like, oh, we've been through this already. The only difference is that Batman didn't catch him.
Well, I mean, with this one, too, he goes over and Batman, comes up, sits there, smiles. It's like, And I'm like, ooh, that's kind of crazy how you were like, do I? I was like, that's crazy.
That's why I went back through the episode to see all the different ways Joker says Batman, because the 2 times he says Batman there, and I'm like, oh, those are drastically different. And then they're just drastically different throughout the entire episode. But after Batman pulls the Joker back up, we cut back to Wayne Manor, where Alfred is cleaning up, and Bruce has taken multiple showers to wash the trash smell off of him. I think he said like 7 or 8 showers, but he still smells like trash. And Alfred's bummed out because he's destroyed a priceless Ming vase, and Bruce jokes that he'll just take it out of his salary for the next couple of years. And also like, oh no, because Alfred is convinced that he can't tell a joke. And I thought that's where the episode ended. And then Bruce pokes his head back in. He was like, April Fools. And I really enjoyed it. This was a good episode. And hi, Randy.
I have a cat joining me now.
This was another good Joker episode, and I didn't realize until this one that it greatly mirrors Joker's origin without even telling us Joker's origin. And if you've never seen Joker's origin, whenever you get to it, you'll be able to call back to these events, and you're like, wow, my initial 2 interactions with Batman and the Joker were his origin, minus the end bit. But yeah, that's the episode. I really enjoyed it. I think pacing-wise, it felt like a really fast episode. It did not feel as long as it is.
Yes.
Chloe has lauded it for that, because we've watched so many episodes, and she's like, that was 22 minutes. And I was like, yeah, these episodes are very well paced.
This one, to me, felt like the first time we see, a standard Batman adventure. It felt like the first one where it's the first repeat villain, so it's not their first time meeting. They have history. It's just Batman is chilling. Here's on the news, Joker's up to something. He's like, oh, great, not again. He goes down there. He's like, what are you going to throw at me this time? Clown bot. and he's like, that one was a little harder than usual, but I'm Batman. I'm going to get past it, and then I'm going to bring you in. It was just like, this one to me felt like business as usual. There were no wrenches thrown in his plan, really. He went there with a mission. He knew Joker was going to throw something weird at him, and he did, and he adapted and overcame, and then he won, and he's just like, yep, this is what I do.
Classic Batman. Thank you for joining me today. I'll catch you next episode.
I think it's the Poison Ivy one. I think it's Pretty Poison.
Join us next time for what I believe is Pretty Poison. It won't be too long, I guess. Bye-bye.
Bye.